On Sunday, September 23rd, 2029, I got back to school after my part-time job. I'd been exhausted for 2 days, but I made 300, enough to get by for a week. The moment I pushed the door open, my 2 roommates were yelling at their phones. "Yongbin, you're back. Log in, quick." I got totally screwed over by Wen Liang. Lubo shouted. "Who?" Wen Liang shot back. "And you've got the nerve to talk after going 1-8? Seeing they were about to start arguing again, I quickly cut in. Pot calling the kettle black. "You both suck." After chatting for a bit, I realized Chen Hao still wasn't back. The 2 of them said he'd gone on a date and probably wouldn't be coming back tonight. I teased them for being homebodies, and they laughed at me for being poor instead, saying with my face I could easily find some rich older woman. I laughed. My teeth are too good. I'm not cut out for living off a woman. I called Chen Hao, but his phone was off. I frowned. This guy goes out on a date without even charging his phone? Too lazy to bother with it. I carried those 2 deadweights to a few wins and then went to sleep. After 2 days of hard labor, I was really worn out. In the middle of the night, the ringtone for Little Apple suddenly exploded. I felt around for my phone and saw it was Chen Hao. When I answered, there was a long silence before he finally said, "Binji, have a drink with me." "What kind of nonsense are you on about in the middle of the night?" I asked. "Where are you?" "The rooftop." I woke up instantly and rolled out of bed. "Don't do anything stupid. I'll be right there." I threw on some clothes and sprinted to the 7th floor. The iron door to the rooftop was locked all year round, but countless duplicate keys had long since been made. The door was open, and Chen Hao was sitting in the middle of a pile of beer cans, like his soul had been sucked out. I let out a sigh of relief, then got angry again. "You brat, running up here in the middle of the night. I thought you were going to jump off the building." He looked at me, his eyes red. "Sorry for making you worry." I sat down, grabbed a bottle of beer, and took a swig. "Go on, what happened?" He gulped down his beer hard, and only after a long while did he squeeze out the words. "She and I broke up. 3 years together, beaten by reality." My hand paused, but I wasn't surprised. The moment I saw him like this, I'd guessed it. This guy falls too hard, and people like him always lose the worst. I patted him on the shoulder. "Cheer up, there are plenty of women out there. But I really love her." His voice was thick with tears. "Can love fill your stomach?" "Yeah, it can." Looking at her, I don't feel hungry anymore. I was speechless. "But she still cheated on you." He looked up. "How did you know?" "With your personality. If she hadn't cheated on you, would you have broken up?" "Binji, did you come here just to rip open my wounds? I want to know which bastard dared cheat on my brother." I said it righteously. He ground his teeth. "Wang Yuehao. Just because he's rich, Xia? Xia really did betray me because of him." I nodded. "Don't worry, I'll break his 3rd leg sooner or later." He hurriedly stopped me. "Don't. That's against the law. It's not worth it." "Then I'll cuckold him." "But he's with Xia now." "Binji, are you going after Xia too?" "You're overthinking it. He has plenty of girlfriends. Lu Xia doesn't even rank high." Chen Hao broke down. "Binji, are you really here to comfort me? This is pouring salt in the wound." I laughed. "I'm just telling you a woman like that isn't worth it. Tonight I'll get drunk with you, and tomorrow you start over." But we have class tomorrow. Brothers come first." "Binji, you really are the best. Get lost and shut the door. Don't let the teachers catch you." Late at night, the moonlight was dim, yet the starlight was unusually brilliant. The 2 of us lay on the rooftop, surrounded by a pile of empty cans. In a daze, Chen Hao pointed at the sky. "Binji, the Big Dipper's 9 stars are especially bright tonight." "You're drunk. The Big Dipper has 7 stars. Where'd 9 come from?" "Yeah, drunk." "Huh. It really does seem like there are 9. Half asleep." I counted. 1, 2, 8, 9. Really 9. We were both drunk. I saw the North Star falling downward. I saw it too, trailing a long tail. Prettier than a meteor. Why is there another North Star coming out? And it's red too. Haha, we're drunk. Can't do this anymore. Let's sleep. Tomorrow will be better. After saying that, Chen Hao collapsed. I stared at that crimson star, my eyelids growing heavier and heavier until I finally knew nothing at all. After the strange celestial phenomenon, countless streams of spiritual energy surged out all over Blue Star, carrying a decayed aura and seeping into every living organism. A few people remained completely unchanged, but most had bloodshot eyes, decaying bodies, their consciousness swallowed up, turning into walking corpses that knew only how to gnaw. Very few people gained special abilities, and these people had almost all been bathed in the direct light of that crimson star. September 24th, 2029, early morning. Screams and shrieks tore through the campus. I was woken up by the noise, rubbed my temples, climbed up from the floor, and walked to the edge of the rooftop to look down. In an instant, my scalp went numb. The open ground below was strewn with severed limbs, the ground soaked red with blood. Bloody figures everywhere were clutching arms and legs and gnawing on them. Blood-red eyes, rotting skin, exactly like the zombies in movies. I backed away abruptly, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. I must not have been awake. I pinched myself. Ah, Chen Hao sprang up. Brother Ben, why are you pinching me? It hurts? Of course. So it wasn't a dream. I took a deep breath and peeked again. The hellish scene stabbed into my eyes once more. I retreated to the wall and gasped for air. What's wrong? Chen Hao asked in confusion, leaning over to look too. A second later, he collapsed to the ground, his face white as paper, then lay there vomiting violently. I ignored him and took out my phone to call the police. I kept dialing, but it never went through. I opened Weibo and found desperate pleas for help flooding the screen. Photos, videos, all showed the same scene. People around them suddenly turned into walking corpses and bit anyone they saw. In one night, the whole world fell. The internet exploded, and everyone was talking about the apocalypse, zombies. There was still no official debunking. The more I looked, the heavier my heart grew. The apocalypse had really come. Chen Hao finished vomiting, looked up in terror, and asked, Brother Ben, what's going on? The apocalypse has arrived. I handed him the phone. He scrolled through it a few times, and his face turned even paler. Then what do we do? First, find something to prop up the iron door and keep the zombies from getting up here. I was calmer than most people my age. After all, I'd lived on my own since I was little. The two of us found a maintenance ladder in the corner of the rooftop, propped one end against the door and the other against the wall, locking it in place. This place usually had no visitors, so it was temporarily safe. Chen Hao asked, Wait for rescue? Can't wait. The whole world is in chaos, and the authorities can't even take care of themselves. If we keep waiting, we'll just starve to death. Then what? First observe the zombies, figure things out clearly, then think of a way. This place has a good view. Keep checking online to see if there's a way to deal with zombies. The cries from downstairs gradually faded away. The people shouting were probably all gone. Zombies are extremely sensitive to sound, and screaming only speeds up death. The nearby dormitories were in the same miserable state. From the initial screams to now, only the zombies' howls remained. Brother Ben, why did so many people turn into zombies while we're fine? Special constitution? Chen Hao asked. I don't know, maybe just luck. Although many people changed, there were still plenty of normal people. Neither of us changed, so the odds weren't low. I said that out loud, but in my mind flashed the 9 stars of the Big Dipper and that crimson star I saw last night. Could it be related to that? I looked up again, but the sky was already clear with no trace left, so I could only set it aside for now. What about Lu Bo and the others? Chen Hao worried. We can only leave it to luck. In the dorm it was just the two of them. If one turned, the other would be in danger too. I shook my head. He immediately wanted to make a call, but I stopped him. Call that woman or home. Of course home. Don't call. The whole world is like this now. If your parents were fine, once the phone rings it could lure zombies over, and then nothing becomes something. Chen Hao hurriedly put his phone away in fright. Good thing you're rational, Brother Ben. If you want, you can call that woman to check on her. Forget it. Though she wronged me, I wouldn't go so far as to hurt her. Let's just treat her like a stranger. He gave a bitter smile. Being able to get over it is good. Don't worry, Brother Ben. I'm not that useless. That's good. Chen Hao suddenly thought of something. Would the phone have no signal? It would. Once the communication base stations go down, the phone can only be used as a flashlight. While the internet is still up, download more porn videos. What if the battery dies? Then it's just a brick. On the rooftop, the two of us kept watch on the zombies wandering below while refreshing online updates. Suddenly Chen Hao got excited. Benji, there's a video of someone fighting a zombie. I leaned over. It was on Bilibili, filmed from a window with a pretty good angle. A tall man in a security guard uniform was holding a riot baton, fighting the zombie for his life. He was pretty strong, every strike landing solidly, but the zombie felt no pain and attacked like mad. The man was agile, narrowly dodging every time. After more than 2 minutes of fighting, 2 nearby zombies heard the commotion and came over. The man was horrified and turned to run, but was bitten on the ankle in one bite. He screamed and fell to the ground, and the other 2 pounced on him as well. The video cut off. Both of us fell silent. The danger was even more terrifying than we had imagined. It was a long while before I spoke. A zombie is about as strong as an ordinary person, but it feels no pain and can't be beaten to death. That's the real trouble. Benji, are we going to have to fight them too? Chen Hao's voice trembled. What do you think? If you want to survive, you have to face them. If you don't kill it, it'll eat you. But I'm scared. So am I. I sighed. We're just ordinary students. Who here has ever killed anything? But with the world like this, we can only bite the bullet. While we still have time, we have to overcome our fear, or when we really face them, that fear will get you killed. I'll try. His face was pale. I nodded. Actually, I was nervous too. It was just that I'd been through more and knew complaining was useless. Looking downstairs, there wasn't a single living person left, only zombies wandering around. Everyone still alive was hiding. There was only limited food in the dorm. If we didn't leave, we'd starve to death sooner or later. We had to come up with something. I looked up at the girls' dorm across from us and suddenly saw figures moving over there, as if there was a fight going on. It was too far away to see clearly, so I instinctively focused, wanting to get a better look. The scenery around me suddenly blurred, and then the girls' dorm opposite seemed to zoom in like a telescope focusing, growing clearer and clearer. Then I saw it. On the 6th floor corridor, for tall, sturdy girls were wielding stools, clothes-drying poles, and bedboards, smashing at several zombies in front of them. PE majors, lucky enough that no one in their dorm had turned. They were really bold, actually daring to leave their dorm room. In the narrow corridor, they swung their weapons, trying to force the zombies back. It looked like they were trying to get to a dorm farther ahead. I shook my head. Too naive. This would only attract more. Sure enough, zombies from the other dorms heard the noise and rushed out, lunging at them like mad. The 4 girls turned pale with fright and hurried back into their dorm, locking the door. The zombies charged to the doorway and pounded on it frantically, the door shaking violently. If there wasn't something bracing it from inside, it wouldn't hold for long. I withdrew my gaze, and suddenly my head swam, my body lurched, and I almost fell. Chen Hao quickly caught me. Benji, what's wrong? I shook my head and pointed at the girls' dorm. Can you see clearly what's happening over there? Are you kidding? How could anyone see that clearly from so far away? I fell into thought. I'm over 100 degrees nearsighted, so my eyesight isn't that good. How could I see that far, and so clearly? This was no longer just a matter of eyesight. Could it be a special ability? My eyes lit up. With the apocalypse arriving, not only could people turn into zombies, people might also gain supernatural powers. After all, zombies had already appeared, so having powers wasn't that strange. To test it, I focused my attention on Chen Hao. My staring made his skin crawl, and he instinctively covered himself down there. Stop covering up? It's not like I haven't seen it before. I smiled, but inside I was ecstatic. I could actually see through things. The dream of countless men had just fallen into my lap. I kept looking at Chen Hao, wanting to see how far it could go. Suddenly, my expression turned utterly shocked, as if I had seen something unbelievable. What's wrong, Benji? Seeing Yang Bin's expression, Chen Hao asked, somewhat puzzled. How's he? Turn invisible for your bro to see. Yang Bin suddenly said. Are you sick, brother Bin? If I could turn invisible, why would I even need a girlfriend? Wouldn't it be great to squat in the girls' bathhouse every day? Chen Hao said speechlessly. If I say you can, then you can. Try concentrating and silently repeating invisibility in your mind. Yang Bin said seriously. Seeing Yang Bin's serious expression, although Chen Hao felt it was a bit ridiculous, he still did as told. Very soon, Chen Hao's body slowly faded, and before long he completely disappeared from where he stood. Be brother Bin, I think. I really turned invisible. Chen Hao's excited voice rang out across the rooftop, but there was no sign of him anywhere around. Yang Bin also looked at the Chen Hao who had vanished into thin air with a face full of delight. He hadn't expected that he really could see other people's special abilities. Then he concentrated again and looked toward the spot where Chen Hao had disappeared, and soon Chen Hao's figure appeared before him. At this moment, he was excitedly holding out his hands and looking them over again and again. Haha, I can turn invisible now. That's awesome. From now on, no girl's bathhouse can stop me anymore. Chen Hao said excitedly. Can you have a little ambition? Yang Bin rolled his eyes. What's ambition? Is it more practical than watching beautiful women bathe? This is the apocalypse now. There are no beautiful women bathing in the girl's bathhouse, only zombies coming for your life. Do you want to go take a look? Then forget it. Chen Hao said awkwardly. But brother Bin, what's going on exactly? Why can I suddenly turn invisible? Could it be a superpower? I guess so. Yang Bin nodded. But why did I suddenly get a superpower? It should have been caused by this apocalypse. I don't know whether it's good or bad, but no matter what, since we have special abilities, at least we have a bit more capital to survive in this apocalypse. That's a good thing. Yang Bin said. Brother Bin, what's your special ability? Chen Hao asked curiously. Yang Bin thought for a moment and said, I can see things other people can't. Like what? Like your invisibility. Damn, doesn't that totally counter me? Chen Hao said speechlessly. Looks like I won't be able to get the upper hand in front of you for the rest of my life. What? Do you want me to call you big brother? Yangbin said with a half smile. No. Chen Hao quickly waved his hands and said, but brother Ben, since we both have special abilities, do you think we can accomplish something big in this apocalypse? Chen Hao said excitedly. It's too early to say that now. Let's first figure out how to stay alive. Neither of our abilities is meant for combat. It won't be so easy to survive in an apocalypse full of zombies. Yangbin shook his head and said, true, but I can turn invisible, so I can go steal food. At least this way, we won't starve to death. Don't be too optimistic. From what I've observed, these zombies seem to have especially sharp hearing. If you can't move without making a sound, then your invisibility won't be of much use against zombies. You'll have to practice more from now on and strive to make not a single sound while walking. Later we'll find a zombie to test it and see whether it can detect you. Are you sure this isn't testing it by dying? It won't be. You have to believe in yourself. Alright. By the way, Howsy, when you turn invisible, even the clothes on your body seem to turn invisible too. Does that mean things you're holding can also turn invisible? Yangbin suddenly asked. I'll try. Chen Hao picked up a brick from the ground, then activated invisibility again. Sure enough, as he turned invisible, the brick in his hand disappeared along with him. It really works. Chen Hao said somewhat excitedly. Yangbin nodded and asked again. Then try seeing whether, if you're holding on to me, you can make me turn invisible with you too. Okay. Chen Hao reappeared, then grabbed Yangbin with one hand and activated invisibility again. But it turned out that not only could he not make Yangbin turn invisible with him, he couldn't even turn invisible himself. Looks like it doesn't work. Chen Hao said with a frown. Then it probably can't affect living things. Yangbin had his own suspicions. If that's the case, then when invisible, if he touches a living thing, will he also reappear? Let me try again. Chen Hao decisively tested it again. Right now, they knew nothing about special abilities, so of course they had to keep trying. Only by understanding one's own power well enough could they make better use of it in the future. Chen Hao turned invisible again, then patted Yangbin on the shoulder. As his hand touched Yangbin, his figure immediately reappeared. After that, he tested many more times, whether he touched him with his body or with a brick. As long as he touched Yangbin, his body would reappear. So that's how it is. As long as he touches a living thing, invisibility fails. Chen Hao said helplessly. Then you must be extra careful in the future. Invisibility isn't Weinung. When you're invisible, don't touch anything. Yangbin said seriously. Yes. Chen Hao nodded earnestly. Bang, bang, bang. Just then, the iron door to the rooftop was suddenly pounded violently by someone. Who's in there? Open the door. Open it now. There are zombies. An anxious voice came from outside the door, and the banging grew even fiercer. This sudden turn of events startled both of them. Benji, what do we do? Should we open the door? Chen Hao frowned. Yangbin stared intently at the iron door, his gaze passing straight through it to see three men with terrified expressions standing behind it. One of them was anxiously pounding on the door, while the other two each had an 80 cm long steel pipe in hand, and one of them was frantically using a high stool to smash at the two zombies that were chasing after them. Because of the staircase, they were in a relatively high position. As soon as the zombies rushed up, they were knocked back down. Yangbin frowned and said helplessly, open it. Otherwise, if they keep banging like this, we don't know how many zombies it'll attract. By then, this wooden ladder may not be able to hold. But be careful, there are three of them, and one of them has a steel pipe in his hand. We need to guard against them. Even though they're classmates, in the apocalypse, people's hearts are hard to read. Don't worry, Benji, I understand. Chen Hao nodded. In a moment, I'll move the ladder away, you go open the door. And once they're inside, close it immediately. Okay. After the two reached an agreement, Yangbin again looked at the situation behind the iron door. Seeing the other side once more beat back the zombies that had rushed up, he quickly moved the ladder away. And Chen Hao also opened the door at once. The three people at the door saw it open and instantly rushed in, then immediately shut the door. Yangbin hurriedly propped the ladder back up. Soon, crashing sounds came from outside the door. Clearly the zombies had already charged up, but the strength of two zombies wasn't enough to push open the iron door held in place by the ladder. Huff, huff, huff. The three men who had escaped death collapsed to the ground, gasping heavily, obviously badly shaken. After a while, the three looked at Yangbin and the other man. One of the thin men said with lingering fear, that scared me to death. Why did you take so long to open the door? We nearly got eaten by zombies. How can you talk like that? We saved your lives, and instead of thanking us, you're actually blaming us? Chen Hao immediately was unhappy. The rooftop is a public area. Anyone can come up here. You blocked the door on your own. Isn't that a bit unethical? Said the tall man holding the steel pipe. Exactly. Our dorm room door was smashed by zombies. We originally wanted to come to the rooftop for shelter, but you blocked the door and almost got us eaten by zombies. Isn't that harming people? Said the dark-skinned man in the middle. Chen Hao still wanted to argue with them, but Yang Bin stopped him. What you said makes sense. We really shouldn't have blocked the door. Yang Bin said seriously, and after speaking he was about to move the ladder away. Hey, don't. Brother, let's talk this out. Let's talk this out. Don't move it. Yeah, brother, there's no need. No need for that. Brother, you're right. Blocking it was a great idea. Absolutely brilliant. When the three saw Yang Bin was about to move the ladder, they immediately broke out in a cold sweat. There were 2 zombies outside, practically howling with hunger. If they rushed in, there'd be no way to survive. Wasn't blocking the door supposed to be immoral? Yang Bin said with innocent eyes wide open. No, moral, very moral. Not harming anyone. Not harming anyone. Not at all. Oh, that's good then. Yang Bin nodded innocently, then slowly moved his hand away from the ladder. Just as the 3 were about to breathe a sigh of relief, Yang Bin put his hand on it again. I think it's better to move it away. What if someone else comes? The breath the 3 hadn't fully let out was sucked back in again. No, no one will come. We live on the 7th floor, and all the dorm rooms on the entire floor have their doors tightly shut. There are quite a few zombies in the corridor too. No one will come out. The tall man said anxiously. Oh, then I'm relieved. Yang Bin nodded again, then shook the ladder and frowned. Why does this ladder feel a bit unstable? The 3 men's hearts leaped into their throats once again. Then hurry and find something to wedge under it. This isn't something to joke about. Okay. Yang Bin looked at the ladder's feet, then at the steel pipe in the tall man's hand, and said, Brother, lend me your steel pipe for a moment. Let me see if I can wedge this ladder leg with it. I feel like your steel pipe is about the right size. Okay. The tall guy directly tossed the steel pipe over. He didn't think too much about it, as long as the zombies didn't get in. Yang Bin smiled, picked up the steel pipe and pretended to measure it a few times, then clapped his hands and said, Done. It's stable now. Hearing this, the 3 finally breathed a sigh of relief, not realizing that the weapon in their hand had already changed ownership. With the weapon in hand, a smile appeared on Yang Bin's face as well. He couldn't be blamed for being overly suspicious. In special times like these, he had to nip every thread in the bud if he wanted to live a little longer. We're from dorm 308. My name's Yang Bin, and he's Chen Hao. What should we call you? Yang Bin introduced them proactively. We're from dorm 716. My name's Zhao Kuan, and these are Skinny Monkey and Old Hay. The tall man said. Are there only 3 of you in your dorm? Yang Bin asked curiously. There was one more, but he turned into a zombie. Luckily we noticed early this morning, otherwise we'd all be dead. Zhao Kuan said, still shaken. Not bad. Being able to escape from a zombie's jaws. Yang Bin said in surprise. It doesn't really count as escaping. There were 3 of us and only one of him, and he fell off the top bunk himself. So the 3 of us worked together and tied him to the bed with bed sheets. That's how we survived. That's still pretty impressive. What about you? You're from the 3rd floor. How did you end up here? The 2 of us were up here drinking and chatting last night, so we never went back to the dorm at all. All right, you 2 are really lucky. I think so too. Yang Bin smiled. The 2 sides started chatting, and they got along fairly well. They were all classmates after all, and without any conflict of interest, it was easy for them to hit it off. It wasn't until noon that a few growling sounds were heard. Skinny Monkey clutched his stomach and said awkwardly, Do you have anything to eat? We haven't eaten anything from this morning until now, and we're a bit hungry. Does it look like there's any food up here? Yang Bin spread his hands and said helplessly. They also hadn't eaten anything since last night, and were hungry too. They were just enduring it. Then what do we do? Even if the zombies can't get in, without food we'll starve to death sooner or later. Just hang in there. Maybe official rescue will arrive before long. Old Hay said, What if the authorities don't come for days? That's impossible, right? Nothing is impossible. We can't place our hopes in others. We still have to find a way to get food ourselves, Chen Hao said. How? There are 2 zombies guarding the door right now. We can't even get out, let alone find food. Maybe we can let them in and deal with them, then find a way to go down to the dorms and look for something to eat. Yang Bin said seriously. Are you crazy? If we let them in, we'll all die. The group was instantly shocked. They had fought zombies before and knew very well how terrifying they were. After finally hiding in a safe place, they really didn't want to face zombies again. There are only 2 zombies outside right now, and there are 5 of us. We still have a chance to deal with them. If there are more zombies, then we really won't be able to get out. Yangbin said. You're overthinking it. You haven't fought zombies before, so you don't know how terrifying they are. These things don't feel pain at all. Hitting them does nothing. If they catch or bite you, you're done for. Zhao Kuan said with a frown. Yeah, letting them in is no different from courting death. You may not want to live, but we still do, Skinny Monkey said, shaking his head. Even Chen Hao looked at Yangbin somewhat worriedly and said, Brother Bin, are you sure about this? Whether we're sure or not, we have to take this step. This is the rooftop, and zombies have no intelligence. As long as we find a way to push them off the roof, it's settled. This is the easiest way to deal with zombies. If even this won't work, then we can forget about getting out. Yeah, Brother Bin, I support you, Chen Hao said firmly. No. Anyway, we don't agree to letting the zombies in, the other three said, shaking their heads. We were here first to begin with. Since when did we need your approval? Yangbin said angrily. If we don't agree, let's see who dares let them in. Zhao Kuan was furious too and reached for the steel pipe, only to discover that it had somehow ended up in the other party's hands. His face instantly darkened. Give me back the steel pipe. Do you think that's possible? Yangbin sneered. That was mine to begin with. It's mine now. MD, without the steel pipe, there's no way in hell I'm letting you bring the zombies in. That's not for you to decide. Yangbin gave him a cold look and suddenly kicked the ladder, knocking it over directly. Holy shit. Zhao Kuan and the other two were instantly shocked and hurriedly used their bodies to brace the iron door at once. Madman, you're a fucking madman. You're going to get all of us killed like this. Zhao Kuan roared angrily. Rather than staying here waiting to die, we'd be better off taking a gamble. If you don't dare fight, then keep bracing it. Let's see how long you can hold out. Yangbin said coldly. Neither side would give way, and the atmosphere instantly became tense to the extreme. Bang bang. The iron door was struck again. The zombies, which had originally quieted down, heard the commotion inside and slammed into the iron door once more. The three of them braced the iron door with all their might. Seeing that Yangbin and the other guy had no intention of coming over to help, their faces immediately turned ashen. What do we do, Brother Kuan? Skinny Monkey said anxiously. If this keeps up, we won't be able to hold on much longer. Zhao Kuan's expression changed several times. In the end, he gritted his teeth and said to Yangbin, Fine, we can fight, but there should at least be a battle plan, right? What kind of move is kicking the ladder away just like that? What you said does make some sense. Yangbin nodded seriously, then leisurely moved the ladder back and braced it against the iron door again. Phew. The three of them collapsed to the ground again. They had originally thought that getting to the rooftop meant they were safe, but they hadn't expected it to be this thrilling. After quite a while, Zhao Kuan looked at Yangbin and said, Go on then. How are we fighting this? Yangbin looked around and said, In a moment, Skinny Monkey and Old Black will move the ladder away together. After the zombies come in, you'll use the ladder to pin one zombie against the wall, and the three of us will deal with the other zombie. Try to push both zombies downstairs as quickly as possible. Easy for you to say, zombies are fast, and the ladder is so bulky. If the zombies get close, the ladder not only won't serve as a weapon, it'll become a burden instead, and then they'll be in danger. Zhao Kuan retorted. From what I've observed, a zombie's physical abilities are about the same as an ordinary person's. Their advantage is that they don't feel pain, but likewise, zombies also have a fatal weakness, and that is that they have no intelligence and don't know how to dodge attacks. As long as the zombies come in, the two of them just need to use the ladder to pin a zombie against the wall immediately. I don't think it'll have any chance to get close. If even that goes wrong, then they can only blame themselves. Yangbin said, Fine, even if you're right, how are we supposed to deal with the other one? I don't have a weapon. I can't exactly fight a zombie barehanded, can I? Zhao Kuan said unhappily as he looked at the steel pipe in Yangbin's hand. That thing had originally been his. There had originally been a tall stool too, but they had rushed in just now and didn't bring it in, and it was still sitting at the doorway. Now they had no weapons at all. There are so many bricks on the ground. Can't you just pick up a couple and use them as weapons? Bricks? How could you even think of that? Why don't you use bricks to fight zombies yourself? I have a steel pipe, so I don't need to. Are you ready? Yangbin looked at them with a serious expression. The others nodded nervously. Although Zhao Kuan and the other two were somewhat displeased, Yangbin was far too forceful, so in the end they could only compromise. When I count to 3, Lao He, you two move the ladder away. Okay. Lao He and Skinny Monkey were both gripping the ladder with sweaty hands. 123. As soon as Yangbin finished speaking, Lao He and Skinny Monkey immediately moved the ladder away. Bang! With the sound of an impact, the iron door flew open, and immediately after, two blood-covered zombies charged straight onto the rooftop. This was Yang Bin and Chen Hao's first close encounter with zombies. And those blood-red eyes were enough to make one's hair stand on end, while the stench of blood rushing at them made them want to vomit. Fortunately, the two had already done a lot of mental preparation. Although they felt uncomfortable, they weren't so frightened that they couldn't move. The moment the two zombies rushed in, they locked onto the people on the rooftop and charged straight at them. Lao Hei and Skinny Monkey lifted the ladder and quickly rammed it into one of the zombies, pushing it against the wall. The zombie bared its fangs and claws and struggled frantically, but no matter what, how could one person's strength compare to two people's? In the end, it was firmly pinned against the wall and unable to break free. Yang Bin and the other two also charged at the other zombie immediately. Roar! With a roar, the zombie lunged straight at Yang Bin, who was charging in front. Yang Bin quickly sidestepped, dodging the zombie's pounce, and then the steel pipe in his hand smashed viciously into the zombie's head. Thud! A muffled sound rang out, and Yang Bin even felt his arm go a little numb. However, the zombie seemed completely fine and lunged at him again. Damn, didn't they say on TV that a zombie's weak point is its head? How the hell is anyone supposed to fight when it's this hard? Yang Bin cursed and hurriedly retreated. Just then, Chen Hao, who had rushed over, directly smashed a brick hard against the zombie's head. Bang! The brick shattered on impact, and dark red, foul-smelling blood flowed from the zombie's head. Clearly, that blow was even heavier than the one from Yang Bin's steel pipe, and the zombie's attention was successfully diverted. Chen Hao decisively turned and ran. The zombie immediately gave up on Yang Bin and chased after Chen Hao. At this moment, Zhao Kuan rushed out from the side, also holding a brick, and smashed it directly onto the zombie, but he didn't hit its head, but hit its shoulder instead. The zombie didn't even glance at Zhao Kuan and kept chasing Chen Hao relentlessly. The rooftop was limited in space, and Chen Hao was soon forced to the edge. Just as the zombie was about to catch up to him, Chen Hao's figure suddenly disappeared. Zhao Kuan, who was following behind, saw this and his eyes nearly popped out. Where did he go? Yang Bin, however, wasn't surprised at all and chased after them without hesitation. After losing its target, the zombie quickly locked its gaze back onto Yang Bin. With a steel pipe in hand, Yang Bin still had some confidence. He kept striking the zombie with the pipe, preventing it from getting close to him. At this moment, Zhao Kuan also rushed over and asked in shock, "Where's Chen Hao?" "I'm right here." Chen Hao's figure reappeared. "Why you just? How did you suddenly disappear?" Zhao Kuan was even speaking incoherently. "Look how scared you are. Haven't you ever seen a magic trick?" Chen Hao said casually. "And you're telling me this TM is a magic trick?" Zhao Kuan said with his eyes wide open. "What else could it be? It's not like I can turn invisible, right?" Chen Hao rolled his eyes. "You two, stop chatting and figure out a way to get it down there. I can't hold out much longer," Yang Bin said anxiously. Only then did Zhao Kuan suppress the countless questions in his heart and pick up a brick to go help. "No need to come over. We're at the edge now. One of you just give it a kick and send it down," Yang Bin said. Chen Hao and Zhao Kuan looked at each other, and in the end Chen Hao said, "I'll do it." Then Chen Hao fixed his eyes on the zombie fighting with Yang Bin, started up, broke into a run, and charged over in an instant, then leaped up and delivered a fierce kick to the zombie. The powerful kick sent the zombie flying over the railing and off the rooftop. "Nice," Yang Bin praised. The three of them immediately leaned over to look down. Bang! A dull thud rang out as the zombie's body slammed hard onto the floor below, and countless streams of dark red blood flowed out of it. Just when the three thought the zombie should be finished, it staggered back to its feet, looked around in confusion, and then, like the other zombies, began searching for prey. It still didn't die? All three of them stared with their eyes wide open. "MD, these zombies are way too disgusting," Zhao Kuan complained. "Stop whining. Hurry up and help get the other one down first," Yang Bin said. At this moment, on the other side, Lao Hei and Skinny Monkey were using a ladder to pin the zombie down hard. No matter how the zombie struggled, it couldn't break free. By the time Yang Bin and the others rushed over, the two were already drenched in sweat. "Let go. Then the few of us will use the ladder together to push it out," Yang Bin said. "Okay." 5 people dealing with one was much easier. The moment the ladder was loosened, the zombie charged wildly at them. Several of them carried the ladder and pushed the zombie to the edge of the rooftop, then shoved it straight out. Bang! There was another dull thud. Everyone ran to the edge of the rooftop again and stuck their heads out to look down. They saw that this zombie had fallen into a pool of blood and didn't get back up again. "Huh, why did this one die?" Zhao Kuan asked strangely. Its head was smashed open from the fall. How could it not die? Chen Hao said. True enough. Yangbin nodded thoughtfully. Looks like TV wasn't lying either. If you want to kill zombies, you really do have to hit the head. Close the door and rest for a bit. Everyone used the ladder to brace the door shut again, then collapsed onto the ground. Although the clash with the zombies had been brief, the psychological pressure had been immense. They were all just ordinary college students. Facing zombies, the fact that they even dared to fight already showed strong mental fortitude. Thinking back on it now, every one of them was trembling inside. Hiss! The sound of someone sucking in a breath rang out. They saw Chen Hao clutching his foot, a pained expression on his face. What happened? Yangbin hurried over. Chen Hao carefully pulled up his pant leg, and 3 long bloody scratches on his foot immediately came into view. What happened? Yangbin asked nervously. I probably got scratched when I kicked that zombie just now, and it was flailing around. Chen Hao said with a bitter smile. Hearing his words, the air around them instantly froze, and then Zhao Kun and the other 2 quickly moved away from them. Yangbin also frowned, staring grimly at the wound on Chen Hao's foot. Seeing their expressions, Chen Hao quickly realized something too. His face instantly turned ashen, and he said tremblingly, Brother Ben, am I going to turn into a zombie? No, don't overthink it. You'll be fine. Yangbin comforted him. How could he not? It's all over the internet. If you're bitten by a zombie or scratched by one, you'll turn into a zombie very soon, Skinny Monkey said. Shut up. No one thinks you're mute just because you don't speak. Yangbin shouted angrily. That's just the truth. Why won't you let people say it? What's the point of deceiving yourself like this? Zhao Kun said. This is my business. Keep running your mouth and believe it or not. I'll make sure the few of you can never speak again. Yangbin picked up the steel pipe and looked at them coldly as he spoke. What? You want to take on 3 of us by yourself? Zhao Kun refused to back down in the slightest. He had long been pissed off at Yangbin. You can try, Yangbin said coldly. The atmosphere grew tense once again. At that moment, Chen Hao patted Yangbin on the shoulder and said in a low voice, Brother Ben, there's no need. I know very well what's going on. Yangbin withdrew his icy gaze, looked at Chen Hao, and said with reddened eyes, Haozi, I'm sorry. If I hadn't told you to kick it, this wouldn't have happened. Brother Ben, it's not your fault. I was just too careless. Chen Hao said with a bitter smile. Brother Ben, do you know? The person I've admired most in my life is you. Being your brother is the thing I'm proudest of. If I really am going to turn into a zombie, could you kill me first? I don't want to turn into a zombie and hurt people. As Chen Hao spoke, his eyes grew moist. No, don't overthink it. There must be a way. Yangbin activated his special ability and stared fixedly at the wound on Chen Hao's foot. Very soon, he saw a faint wisp of gray energy continuously eroding Chen Hao's wound. But there seemed to be a special energy inside Chen Hao's body as well, resisting the erosion of that gray energy. For a time, the 2 sides were locked in a stalemate. Seeing this, a look of delight appeared on Yangbin's face. Although he didn't know why Chen Hao was able to resist the erosion of the gray energy, he knew that perhaps Chen Hao might not turn into a zombie after all. Brother Ben, can you promise me something? Chen Hao still went on talking to himself. After I die, can you go look for my parents? They haven't replied to my messages, and I'm a little worried about them. At this moment, Yangbin had no mind to listen to Chen Hao ramble on. He had discovered that the gray energy eroding Chen Hao was slowly decreasing, which finally eased his anxious heart. He knew Chen Hao should be fine. Brother Ben? All right, stop rambling. You should be fine. Really? A look of delight appeared on Chen Hao's face. If you can avoid dying, who would want to die? Trust me. Okay. Chen Hao nodded firmly. You're celebrating too early. The only reason he hasn't turned yet is that the time hasn't come. I advise you to make him leave quickly, otherwise we'll have no choice but to push him down. I can't gamble our lives on this. Zhao Kun suddenly said, Give it a try. If you dare mess around, don't blame me for breaking your legs. Yangbin said coldly. You. Zhao Kun was so angry he stomped his feet, wanting to go over and fight the other party. But he was wary of the steel pipe in the other party's hand, so in the end he could only grit his teeth and say, Fine, you're ruthless. But don't say I didn't warn you. You're the closest to him. If he turns into a zombie, you'll be the first one eaten. After saying that, he led the other 2 far away. Brother Ben, why don't you stay farther away from me too? I'm afraid just in case, Chen Hao said worriedly. There is no just in case. If I say you're fine, then you're fine. Sit still. I'll bandage you up. Although the wound isn't deep, the weather is too hot, so we still have to prevent inflammation. After saying that, Yangbin directly tore off a section of his sleeve, squatted down, and carefully bandaged Chen Hao. The gray energy on the wound had basically all dissipated, so there should be no problem. Chen Hao watched Yangbin bandaging his wound with red-rimmed eyes, but he didn't say thank you. There was already no need for such words between them. All right, get some good rest. By tomorrow, you'll probably be fine. Yangbin clapped his hands and stood up, then suddenly saw Chen Hao's red-rimmed eyes and was startled. Damn it, don't scare me. You're not really about to turn into a zombie, are you? No, it's just that something got in my eyes. Chen Hao quickly rubbed his eyes and said, That's good. Yangbin immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Brother Bin, actually my foot is fine, it's just a few scratches. As long as I don't turn into a zombie, it'll be fine. It won't affect anything, Chen Hao said. Even so, you should still rest a bit more. There's more fighting later. Half an hour later, when Zhao Kuan and the others saw that Chen Hao still looked completely normal, they immediately became puzzled. Didn't people online say that after being scratched by a zombie, you turn into one within a few minutes? Why is he fine? Yeah, exactly. That's not scientific. Could everything online be fake? No way. I even have a video here clearly recording the whole process of a person going from normal to turning into a zombie. It can't be fake. Then what's going on with him? Don't know. Should we go ask? I'm not going. That Yangbin is fierce as hell. I'm kind of afraid of him now. Brother Kuan, you go. I already talked tough. If I go ask now, wouldn't that be slapping my own face? Then forget it. Maybe the scratch wasn't deep, or maybe that Chen Hao has a special constitution. Now that you mention it, I suddenly remember. There does seem to be something off about this Chen Hao, Zhao Kuan suddenly said. How so? You probably didn't see it just now, but that zombie was about to catch up to him, and he suddenly disappeared on the spot. Then the zombie turned around and went after Yangbin instead. Seriously? That sounds kind of unbelievable. Skinny Monkey said with a look of disbelief. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it either, but it's true. That guy told me it was magic my ass. Do you take me for an idiot? What magic trick doesn't need props? Holy shit, could it be that he can turn invisible? No idea, but this guy really is a bit strange. We need to pay more attention to him. Yeah. Alright, enough about that. That Yangbin is coming over. They saw Yangbin walk straight up to them and say, I'm going to open the door and keep luring zombies up here to kill. What do you say? Again, the few of them immediately widened their eyes. Otherwise, do you want to starve to death up here? No. Skinny Monkey and Old Black immediately shook their heads. Who's going to lure them? Zhao Kuan frowned. I'll go. As long as we lure the zombies on the 7th floor up one by one and deal with them, we can go to the 7th floor dorms to look for food. Hearing Yangbin's words, the others' eyes immediately lit up. Even Zhao Kuan had no choice but to look at Yangbin in a higher light. They had only been thinking about hiding here and waiting for rescue, while he had long since already figured out how to get food. Most importantly, he actually didn't make them go lure the zombies, but went himself instead, which left Zhao Kuan with nothing to criticize. Can you handle it? If not, I can go too. I'm more familiar with the 7th floor. Zhao Kuan still habitually threw in a snarky remark. All right, then you go? Yangbin said. Zhao Kuan was instantly dumbfounded, staring at Yangbin with wide eyes. Yangbin ignored him, picked up a few stones from the ground, and stuffed them into Zhao Kuan's hand, saying, Be careful in a bit. If you spot a zombie, throw stones at it from a distance, then just lead it up here. Whatever you do, don't lure too many. Holding the stones, Zhao Kuan opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. He only wanted to slap himself a couple of times. Why the hell did he have to run his mouth? So, under everyone's gaze, Zhao Kuan walked downstairs with a look of utter despair. Zhao Kuan carefully made his way downstairs, afraid of running into trouble at the corner. Luring zombies was a highly dangerous job, but who told him to have such a loose tongue? He could only swallow the consequences. When he reached the stairway corner, he didn't run into any zombies. Just as Zhao Kuan was about to breathe a sigh of relief, he suddenly saw 2 pairs of blood-red eyes staring straight at him from below. Fuck! Zhao Kuan cursed, and quickly turned and ran back. Roar! The 2 zombies excitedly chased after Zhao Kuan. Very soon, Zhao Kuan ran back to the rooftop entrance. How many? Yangbin asked immediately. 2. Fuck! Didn't I tell you to lure them one at a time? How the hell am I supposed to control that? Zhao Kuan complained. Same old method. Skinny Monkey and Old Hay. Use the ladder to hold one back. We'll deal with the other one. Yangbin quickly laid out the plan. With the first experience under their belts, they were obviously much more practiced the second time. As soon as the 2 zombies rushed in, one was pinned back by the ladder, while the other hadn't even figured out what was going on before it got hit with 2 bricks and a steel pipe, all aimed at its head. The zombie let out an angry roar and quickly charged after the three who had attacked it. The three swiftly lured the zombie to the edge. Then Yang Bin engaged it with the steel pipe, while Zhao Kun and Chen Hao picked up the tall stool that old He had brought up earlier and slammed it hard into the zombie. None of them dared kick anymore now, afraid of getting grabbed again. The tall stool was especially useful at this moment. It smashed hard into the zombie, and without any surprise, the zombie was knocked straight off the rooftop. Next, the group worked together to use the ladder to shove the other zombie off as well. The whole process was smooth and effortless, and everything was resolved in just over a minute. Good teamwork. Yang Bin walked up to Zhao Kun and Du Dong Sun Chu Sodao. Although there had been some friction between them when facing the zombies, the other three hadn't played any tricks and had all given it their all, which improved Yang Bin's impression of them quite a bit. At the end of the day, there wasn't really any hatred between them, just some verbal conflict. They still needed to keep working together, so they had to put aside their personal grievances, otherwise something could easily go wrong. Seeing Yang Bin take the initiative to extend his hand, Zhao Kun froze for a moment, but he quickly reached out and shook Yang Bin's hand. He understood what Yang Bin meant, and he also knew that at a time like this, they had to put aside personal grudges. Since the other party had already taken the initiative to offer a handshake, he naturally wouldn't keep putting on airs. Good teamwork. But for this zombie luring business, can we take turns? It's really pretty dangerous. Zhao Kun said awkwardly. All right, I'll lure the next one. Yang Bin did not hesitate at all. In fact, from the very beginning he had planned to go himself. He had X-ray vision and could spot zombies in advance, minimizing the danger as much as possible. But Zhao Kun just had to make that comment, so Yang Bin could only oblige him. Seeing how readily Yang Bin agreed, Zhao Kun couldn't help thinking even more highly of him. Though he didn't want to admit it, the other man really was broader-minded than he was. After everyone rested for a while, Yang Bin casually picked up a few stones and went downstairs to lure the zombies. When he reached the stairwell corner, Yang Bin activated his Eye of True Sight and scanned the area. That was the name he had given his special ability, which let him see things others couldn't. The name Eye of True Sight suited it perfectly. Only after confirming there were no zombies did Yang Bin carefully walk down. When he was about to reach the 7th floor, he activated Eye of True Sight again and looked to both sides. There were 2 zombies wandering in the dorm on the left, while the dorm on the right was completely empty. Both dorms looked as if they had been burglarized, with everything in a complete mess. In the corridor, there were 3 zombies on the left very close to the stairwell entrance, and one on the right was also very close. If he rashly went down, these 4 zombies would probably spot him immediately. Yang Bin thought for a moment, took out a stone, and threw it to the right, then quickly hid back behind the stairwell corner. The sound of the stone attracted the attention of several zombies, but the 3 zombies on the left merely glanced over and then lost interest. The zombie on the right, however, walked to where the stone had landed, tilting its head as it looked at the stone on the ground. Seeing this, Yang Bin threw another stone over, this time landing just below the stairs. This curious zombie walked over again, looking somewhat puzzled at the stone on the ground. Hey! Yang Bin stuck out his head and softly greeted it. The moment the zombie saw a living person, it immediately became excited and then quickly sprinted toward Yang Bin. Yang Bin decisively turned and ran upstairs, soon returning to the rooftop. On the rooftop, Zhao Kun and the others stood ready in full alert. Seeing Yang Bin come up, they quickly asked, "How many?" "1. All right." Very soon, the zombie chased Yang Bin onto the rooftop. The moment it came in, it was greeted by a ladder sweeping toward it, smashing hard into its body. Before the zombie could even react, it was sent flying several meters away and crashed near the edge of the rooftop. Just as it got back up, the ladder thrust forward again and directly shoved it off the rooftop. The zombie didn't even get a clear look at the people before it was sent into a high-altitude drop. In a dorm room on the 1st floor, 3 boys were hiding inside at that moment, trembling as they watched zombies continuously falling from above. These zombies really know how to have fun. What of it? They don't feel pain anyway, so what's a little jumping off a building? Sigh. Looks like we not only have to watch out for the zombies outside, but also prevent zombies from jumping down from above. At this rate, when will we ever get out? It's already good enough just to be alive. There's still a bit of bread in the dorm. If the few of us eat sparingly, we should be able to hold out for 2 days. Maybe rescue will come by then. On the rooftop, it's my turn. After saying that, Zhao Kun prepared to go downstairs. That's the kind of person he was. If it was his responsibility, he never shirked it. I'd better go, Yang Bin said. There are 3 zombies by the stairwell entrance. Zhao Kun can't see through walls, so he can't see them at all. And if he goes down blindly, there's a good chance he'll be mobbed by the three zombies. That would be dangerous. Zhao Kun gave Yang Bin a serious look, then nodded and said, okay. Luring zombies was too dangerous a job. If he didn't have to go, all the better. Very soon, Yang Bin went downstairs again and used the same method to throw a stone. However, the three zombies actually walked together to the stairwell entrance, which made Yang Bin frown. He tried several times, but the three zombies just wouldn't separate, leaving Yang Bin extremely speechless. In the end, gritting his teeth, he could only lure them all at once. As Yang Bin revealed himself, the three zombies immediately excitedly charged toward him. Yang Bin led them as he quickly ran toward the rooftop. Be careful, three of them, Yang Bin shouted to the others. Damn, that's brutal. The group was instantly startled. Same old method. Skinny Monkey and Old Hay used the ladder to hold one off. Howsy, you and Zhao Kun used the stool to deal with one, and leave the remaining one to me. Yang Bin quickly made a tactical adjustment. Soon, the three zombies followed Yang Bin onto the rooftop. Skinny Monkey and Old Hay immediately used the ladder to pin one down, and right after that, Zhao Kun and Chen Hao used a high stool to pin another zombie against the wall. Yang Bin led the remaining one to the edge of the rooftop and viciously smashed the steel pipe in his hand into the zombie's head. With a dull bang, Yang Bin used almost all his strength this time, and dark red blood spurted from the zombie's head. The steel pipe in Yang Bin's hand let out a buzzing sound, and even his arm was numbed from the impact. But this blow also had a considerable effect, and the zombie's movements visibly slowed down. Yang Bin's eyes lit up, and he viciously smashed the zombie's head again. With three zombies, Chen Hao and the others had no way to help him, so he could only figure out a way to deal with one himself. Since there was no way to get it downstairs, he could only kill it directly. The steel pipe in Yang Bin's hand kept smashing into the zombie's head. Hitting other parts was useless, so he could only keep striking the hardest spot. As Yang Bin continued attacking, more and more blood flowed from the zombie's head, and the zombie's movements became slower and slower. In the end, under Yang Bin's frenzied barrage, the zombie's head was forcibly smashed to pieces by him. The zombie finally stopped moving and fell straight to the ground. For a moment, red and white matter was splattered all over the ground. Ugh! At the sight of this scene, no matter how brave Yang Bin was, he dropped to the ground and started dry heaving. While he was fighting just now, he hadn't thought about much, only about bringing it down as quickly as possible. Now that he had stopped, the sight of the red and white matter all over the ground made him feel sick. There was already little left in his stomach, and after vomiting like this, he almost threw up bile. Ugh! Although the others were standing farther away, they saw the scene clearly as well, and each of them turned pale and vomited violently. They were all just ordinary college students. When had they ever seen something like this? What was worse for them than for Yang Bin was that while they were vomiting, they still couldn't let go with their hands. Otherwise, if the zombies broke free, their lives would be over. It was simply too hard. After quite a while, Yang Bin finally got up from the ground. Not daring to look at the zombie lying there again, he quickly came over to Chen Hao and the other man. Looking at the zombie they were still holding back that was nonetheless clawing and baring its fangs, Yang Bin said weakly, "This one. Let's throw it down instead." Zhao Kun and Chen Hao nodded quickly. They really were afraid that Yang Bin would smash this one's head too. At this moment, even Zhao Kun looked at Yang Bin with some fear, because crushing a person's head alive was something he knew he couldn't do. Even though it was a zombie, it had still once been a person. Yang Bin didn't waste words. He had the two men let go of the zombie, then led it to the edge. And Chen Hao and Zhao Kun repeated the same method, using the high stool to shove it out. Right after that, the group worked together to push the other zombie down as well. After finishing all this, the whole group felt as if they had collapsed from exhaustion, each one dropping to the ground, unwilling to move. It wasn't that this time had been much more tiring than the previous times. The main thing was all the vomiting. Especially whenever they saw the corpse beside them with its head smashed open, they felt a wave of nausea. After quite a while, Yang Bin got up from the ground and then, under the terrified gazes of the others, walked straight toward the corpse. If they wanted to survive in this apocalypse, situations like this would absolutely be unavoidable in the future, so they had to overcome this hurdle in their hearts as soon as possible. Yang Bin thought to himself. Coming in front of the zombie's corpse, Yang Bin forced himself to endure the nausea and stared directly at it. Seeing Yang Bin like this, Chen Hao hesitated for a while, but finally gritted his teeth and walked over as well. Zhao Kun and the others looked at the two of them as if they were psychopaths. Zhao Kun actually understood in his heart why they were doing this, but he still didn't have the courage to walk over. After a while, Yang Bin looked at Chen Hao beside him and said, "How's he? Well done. Brother Bin, no matter what you do, I'll follow you." Chen Hao said firmly, "Good brother." Yang Bin nodded and said, "Let's throw it down." The two of them lifted the corpse together and threw it off the rooftop, and the others finally let out a sigh of relief. But what they didn't know was that after this, Yang Bin and Chen Hao had already surpassed them in certain aspects. Rest for half an hour, then continue. Yang Bin said. Okay. No one objected. At this moment, Zhao Kuan and the others had already started to fear Yang Bin from the bottom of their hearts, and even the unruly Zhao Kuan was no exception. Next time, can you stop drawing so many over? It's a bit too much to handle, Zhao Kuan said softly. I don't want to either. Those three just wouldn't split up, so I had no choice but to bring them all up, Yang Bin said helplessly. How about next time I go lure them? Zhao Kuan said. No need. If we lure any more next, we'll have to go down to the 7th floor. I'm afraid you'll end up drawing all the zombies in the 7th floor corridor over then. Then how can you be sure you won't? I have my own way. If you insist on going, I won't stop you. But what I need to tell you is that there are at least 30 or 40 zombies in the 7th floor corridor. If they all swarm over, you'll probably be chewed up so badly that not even your bones will be left. Hearing Yang Bin's words, Zhao Kuan shivered involuntarily, then said awkwardly, then forget it. Half an hour later, Yang Bin went downstairs again. What followed went fairly smoothly. There really were quite a few zombies in the 7th floor corridor, but they were all rather scattered and not gathered together. Moreover, the zombies weren't standing still in place. They were all wandering around aimlessly. Yang Bin hid by the stairwell entrance, kept his line of sight set, and used the eye of true sight to observe the zombies' movements. Whenever he found a zombie coming close, he carefully used a pebble to lure it to the stairwell entrance, and then led it to the rooftop, where everyone worked together to push it off. Using this method, Yang Bin successfully lured more than a dozen zombies in a row, until the 17th one, when something happened that took everyone completely by surprise. For the 17th zombie, Yang Bin hid in the corner as before, observing its movements through the eye of true sight, then secretly tossed a pebble not far in front of it. Everything in the earlier steps went smoothly, and Yang Bin also used the pebble to lure the zombie to the stairwell entrance step by step. Then, after spotting Yang Bin, the zombie excitedly charged after him just like the other zombies had. However, this zombie's speed gave Yang Bin quite a fright. It was much faster than the previous zombies. If Yang Bin hadn't run fast, and if there hadn't been some distance between them, he probably would have been caught before he even made it to the rooftop. When the zombie charged onto the rooftop, everyone, as usual, tried to use the ladder to knock it toward the edge of the rooftop. But when the ladder struck it, it only staggered a few steps before steadying itself. This scene immediately shocked everyone. Next, the zombie charged straight at the group, moving extremely fast. At this moment, the ladder's unwieldiness became apparent. The four of them, holding the ladder, couldn't move conveniently at all, and the zombie quickly rushed in front of them. Without hesitation, the four of them decisively smashed the ladder at it, then quickly retreated. With a casual swipe, the zombie knocked the incoming ladder aside, then continued charging toward the group. At this moment, Yang Bin seized the opportunity from the side and viciously smashed a club down on the zombie's head. With a dull thud, even the steel pipe was bent somewhat out of shape. However, the zombie's head was not seriously harmed at all, and it didn't even bleed. How could this be? Yang Bin's eyes widened. He had used almost all his strength in that blow, yet it didn't even draw blood. At this moment, the zombie's gaze locked onto him again. It let out a roar and pounced straight at Yang Bin. Yang Bin rolled to the side, dodging the pounce, and the steel pipe in his hand came crashing down on the other party's head once again. This blow still did not do much damage to it, and it lunged at him again. Everyone, be careful, there's something wrong with this zombie. Yang Bin shouted and quickly dodged the zombie's attacks. But this zombie was far too fast, making it extremely difficult for Yang Bin to evade. Several times, he almost got knocked down by it. Facing this zombie, Yang Bin felt extremely powerless. Smashing a steel pipe against its head felt like nothing to it. How the hell was he supposed to fight this? Although the others were anxious beyond measure, they had no handy weapons and simply couldn't help. Chen Hao picked up a brick and was about to rush forward, but Zhao Kuan quickly stopped him. If you go up like that, it's no different from seeking death. Even a steel pipe can't hurt it. What the hell use is your brick? Then think of something. Brother Bin won't be able to hold on much longer, Chen Hao said anxiously. Watching Yang Bin being chased by the zombie and constantly in peril, the others were also extremely worried. If Yang Bin was killed by the zombie, then the few of them were done for too. Zhao Kuan looked around, wanting to see if there was anything else they could use. Suddenly, he noticed the ladder lying on the ground. After thinking for a moment, he said, "I have an idea. Let's hold the ladder horizontally, with 2 people on each side, and charge straight at it. With the strength of the 4 of us, we should be able to knock it down. If we do, we'll pin it down with the ladder." Hearing Zhao Kuan's words, Chen Hao's eyes lit up. This plan could work. The group quickly picked up the ladder. Then, with 2 people on each side, they held it horizontally and slammed it fiercely toward the 2 locked in combat. "Brother Bin, duck!" Chen Hao shouted. Yang Bin reacted extremely fast and instantly rolled onto the ground. Bang! The middle of the long ladder slammed directly into the zombie, successfully knocking it to the ground. Just as the zombie was about to get back up, the 4 of them instantly pressed down on it with the ladder. The middle of the ladder was pressing down on the zombie, with 2 people at each end pushing down hard on the ladder. The zombie struggled constantly, but in the end, its strength was still not greater than that of 4 people, and it failed to break free. "Well done," Yang Bin praised. However, before everyone had time to celebrate, a sudden crack was heard. To their horror, they discovered that a crack had actually split open in the middle of the ladder, instantly making their pupils contract. Seeing this scene, Yang Bin was also startled. Then he decisively rushed over, swung the steel pipe in his hand, and frantically smashed it toward the other party's head. Thud, thud, thud. Dull sounds rang out one after another. Every strike Yang Bin delivered used all his strength, and every blow landed precisely on the zombie's head. Finally, the zombie's head began to bleed, and its struggling also grew more and more violent. The crack in the ladder grew larger and larger, and everyone's hearts were in their throats. Yang Bin paid no heed and still kept smashing viciously at the zombie's head, specifically aiming for the wounded spot. The steel pipe in his hand had already been battered out of shape, yet Yang Bin still did not dare stop. Those dull thuds made everyone who heard them tremble with fear. Finally, after who knew how many blows, the zombie's resistance gradually weakened. Finally, it stopped completely. By then, the steel pipe in Yang Bin's hand was almost ruined, and his entire body was smeared with red and white matter, making him look like he had just walked out of hell. Aside from Chen Hao, the other 3 looked at Yang Bin with eyes full of fear. This time, right in front of them, he had smashed a zombie's head to pieces with his bare strength. That crazed look of his left a huge psychological shadow on them. Seeing that the zombie was no longer moving, Yang Bin dropped straight to the ground and sat down, panting heavily. This zombie was far too terrifying. If it had broken free, all of them would have died, which was why he had gone so crazy. At that moment, the only thought in his mind was that he had to kill it, or he would be finished. After stopping, Yang Bin suddenly felt a burning pain all over his body. He quickly looked himself over, and his expression immediately sank. He saw that there were many torn wounds on his body. Without even thinking, he knew. They must have been caused by the zombie's claws while it was struggling just now. The others saw this too, and their expressions changed at once. "Brother Bin, you'll be fine, right?" Chen Hao asked in alarm. Yang Bin said nothing and instead activated the Eye of True Sight to look at the wounds. He saw gray energy continuously invading his body through the wounds, but there was also a force inside him resisting it. Seeing this, Yang Bin immediately let out a sigh of relief. It seemed that, like Chen Hao, he also had energy in his body that could resist the zombie virus's erosion. He just didn't know where this energy came from. Being scratched or bitten by a zombie would turn a person into a zombie. This was already an accepted fact. But both he and Chen Hao were fine, and that inevitably made him feel puzzled. After thinking for a while, if there was anything different about them, it could only be that they both had special abilities. Could that be the reason? Yang Bin thought to himself. "Brother Bin, say something. Don't scare me." Seeing that Yang Bin had not spoken for a long while, Chen Hao immediately grew anxious. Yang Bin came back to his senses, shook his head, and smiled. "It's fine. You were fine. So how could anything happen to me?" "Phew." Chen Hao let out a fierce sigh of relief. "That's great. You scared me to death. Are you sure you're fine?" Zhao Kuan and the others still looked at him warily. "What? You still want to push me down?" Yang Bin narrowed his eyes as he looked at them. No, we were just concerned." Zhao Kuan said awkwardly. What a joke. This madman was so ruthless he could even smash a skull apart. Who would dare push him? "Brother Bin, what exactly is going on with this zombie? How could it be so strong?" Chen Hao asked, still shaken. "I don't know either." Yang Bin shook his head, then activated the Eye of True Sight to look at the corpse in front of him. He was also very curious about what was different about this zombie. He scanned the zombie's corpse from head to toe, and soon noticed something unusual in the zombie's head. where there seemed to be a red crystal the size of a grain of rice. A look of curiosity appeared in Yongbin's eyes, and he walked over to the zombie's corpse. Suppressing his nausea, he directly reached his hand into the zombie's shattered head. Ugh! Zhao Kuan and the others, who had been holding back from vomiting this whole time, threw up the moment they saw this. But their stomachs had long since been empty, so they could not vomit anything and could only dry heave. Chen Hao's face also turned a little pale as he hesitated over whether to follow him. He had said that whatever Brother Bin did, he would follow. But Brother Bin was being way too bentai with this. Chen Hao complained inwardly. Fortunately, before long, Yang Bin's hand withdrew from the zombie's head, and now there was an extra red crystal stone the size of a grain of rice in his hand. Yang Bin carefully examined this crystal, whose material was unknown. It feels warm in the hand and very comfortable to touch. Brother Bin, what is this? Chen Hao walked over and asked softly. Yang Bin shook his head and once again activated the Eye of True Sight to look at the crystal in his hand. Under the Eye of True Sight, Yang Bin could see that the crystal in his hand was actually condensed from countless amounts of energy, without any impurities. Moreover, whether it was an illusion or not, he felt that his body seemed to crave this thing intensely. After thinking for a while, Yang Bin gritted his teeth, wiped it on a clean spot on his clothes, and then, right before Chen Hao's dumbfounded eyes, directly swallowed the crystal. Ugh! Chen Hao, who had been holding it in the whole time, couldn't take it anymore this time either, and immediately bent over and started vomiting on the ground. It wasn't that his tolerance was weak, it was really that Brother Bin was being way too freakish. And when Zhao Kuan and the others, who had just finished vomiting, saw this scene, they started retching wildly again, to the point that they even threw up bile. Yang Bin ignored them. At this moment, he was in shock as he felt the changes inside his body. After the crystal entered his mouth, it quickly turned into energy and merged into every part of his body. Yang Bin felt incomparably refreshed all over, and his body seemed to be continuously strengthening. After the energy was completely absorbed, Yang Bin felt that his physical qualities had become nearly twice as strong as before, and the gray energy that had been constantly eroding him was actually cleared out completely. Feeling the surging power within his body, a look of delight appeared in Yang Bin's eyes. Just then, Yang Bin suddenly felt that something extra had appeared in his mind. He closed his eyes and sensed it for a moment, quickly discovering that a dim map of the 9 stars of the Big Dipper had appeared in his mind, and among the 9 dim stars, a corner of the first star had lit up. Yang Bin immediately revealed a shocked expression, because he had seen this map of the 9 stars of the Big Dipper last night. He had originally thought that he was drunk last night and seeing things, but now the distribution of this 9 stars of the Big Dipper map in his mind was exactly the same as what he had seen last night. Was it a coincidence or causality? Yang Bin fell into deep thought. After a long while, Chen Hao finally finished vomiting, and even the way he looked at Yang Bin had changed. Brother Bin, I know you're hungry, but you can't just eat anything. That thing was dug out from inside a zombie's head, and you still dare to eat it? Yang Bin smiled and said softly, this is good stuff. I'll tell you about it later. He then looked at Zhao Kuan and the others, only to find that they were all looking at him with a strange expression, the kind of look one gives a monster. Yang Bin said helplessly, is it really that serious? Wasn't I just eating a little something to fill my stomach? We're not really going to turn into a zombie, are you? Otherwise, how could you eat just anything? Zhao Kuan said in some terror. What a fuss over nothing. When you're hungry enough, you might even eat human flesh. Yang Bin said, how is that possible? Even if I starved to death, I would never eat human flesh. Skinny Monkey said firmly. Exactly, we're not as taught as you. Old Black said. Yang Bin spread his hands and said, I hope you mean what you say. Yang Bin had never eaten human flesh, but he knew very well what it felt like to be starving to the extreme. Back then, for just a little food, he had even fought wild dogs for his life. Rest for a bit, then let's continue. Yang Bin looked at them and said, no way, I'm completely out of strength now. I was already starving, and just now I vomited until I was drained. I probably can't even lift a brick now. Old Black lay on the ground and said weakly, me too. If we don't get something to eat soon, I won't even be able to stand up. Skinny Monkey said. Yang Bin shook his head. That's because your mental endurance is so poor, you throw up at the slightest thing. The others stared wide-eyed at Yang Bin, silently complaining. Wasn't it all because of you? Yang Bin, we'd better find a way to get some food first, otherwise the few of us really won't have the strength to do anything. Zhao Kuan said with a bitter smile. Yang Bin nodded. He actually didn't feel very hungry now, probably because he had just absorbed energy. But looking at the others, Yangbin also knew that. In this state, it was obviously impossible to have them continue dealing with the zombies. Alright then, let's go downstairs and find something to eat. The zombies near the stairwell have mostly been cleared out, and there's a dorm room by the stairwell without any zombies in it. Let's find a way into that dorm room and see if there's anything to eat. Okay. Hearing that they were going to look for food, the others' eyes immediately lit up, as if they suddenly had strength again. Chen Hao and I will go. You all stay up here. Too many people will easily attract zombies. This. The others hesitated somewhat. It was obvious from their expressions that they were worried the two would keep the food for themselves. How about I go with you instead? Zhao Kuan suddenly said. Yangbin thought for a moment, then nodded. Originally, he had thought that since Chen Hao could turn invisible, it would be safest to go with Chen Hao. But they were now two separate groups, so it really wasn't appropriate for just the two of them to go. In the end, it was decided that he and Zhao Kuan would go downstairs together to look for food, while the others stayed upstairs and waited. The two carefully arrived at the stairwell on the 7th floor. Yangbin activated the Eye of True Sight and took a look, confirming that there were no zombies in the dorm room and that the zombies in the corridors on both sides were fairly far away. Signaling to Zhao Kuan, Yangbin crouched halfway down and inched step by step to the dorm room door. Seeing that the door was open, he decisively slipped inside. Zhao Kuan copied Yangbin's movements and quickly slipped into the dorm room as well. However, his build was a bit larger than Yangbin's, and perhaps his movements were too big. Two zombies in the distance glanced over here suspiciously, then staggered this way.